Hey everyone, Alyssa Lebrecq, nutritionist and gut expert. Today I want to talk to you about a particular food that is often promoted for gut health that is probably actually causing you some problems. So listen, there's a lot of different types of foods that you might be eating to try to get this unpredictable, angry gut of yours under control. And everything from, fruits and vegetables to proteins to carbohydrates to healthy fats, there's a lot of different foods that are available to you. And there are going to be different types of foods that may be helpful for you, but not for other people, depending on the symptoms that you might be experiencing. For example, I often hear psyllium husk being recommended in the form of Metamucil, especially from doctors and for individuals who are struggling with things like constipation, which is really just a confusing recommendation because things like psyllium husk are not right for everyone. It's a very binding, bulking fiber. And so if you think about it, if you've got constipation, that recommendation is probably not going to be a very good idea. But for someone with diarrhea, would be a great food. So again, there are going to be foods that are going to be beneficial for some people depending on their symptoms and not for others. But there is one food that I most definitely wholeheartedly do not recommend for anyone who is struggling with gut issues. I'm not sure if you are eating this food, but if you are, I definitely want you to keep listening. The food that we're going to be talking about today is yogurt. Now listen, there's a lot of different types of yogurts out there. I'm talking about the dairy-filled yogurt. And in some cases, we can talk about even dairy-free yogurt, but I'm going to talk specifically about why dairy-based yogurt products are really not actually helping your gut. And yet it's interesting, so many people are feeling drawn to yogurt or it's being recommended on these random blogs on the internet or maybe even your doctor as a gut healing food. It's just not. So let's talk about it. So the very first thing is we have to understand why this food may be being recommended in the first place. And the interesting part is that yogurt is often thought about as a great source of probiotics. Now, probiotics are your beneficial, good bacteria that are going to help to fight off bad bacteria. They're going to help with digesting your foods. They're going to help regulate inflammation in your immune system. So your good bacteria are really, really important. And so when we see these commercials or it's being recommended by a health professional that you should be consuming yogurt, and we pair that with your busy work schedule, seeing these tempting little pre-serving sized little yogurt containers, they make such an easy grab and go solution. It's obviously something that we want to try then. But the reality is that we have trillions of bacteria in our body, trillions. And there's thousands of different strains of beneficial bacteria. So if we look at yogurt and we look at what types of bacteria are present and how much is actually present, this is probably going to make you go, probably not worth it. So let's unpack this. Most dairy products are not actually properly fermented like they once were years ago. And it's the fermentation process that generates and creates these beneficial bacteria. So wait a second, if yogurt products, dairy products are not actually being properly fermented, then we're not really getting any beneficial bacteria. Now, over the last few years, gut health has become quite a trendy thing, if you will, as is probiotics, this term of probiotics. And consumers are really educating themselves and becoming empowered. And these big corporations started to catch on to the fact that, listen, you and I, people like you and I, want to support our health, want to support our gut health, and are looking for probiotics. So companies like Activia started to add probiotics into their yogurts. It doesn't mean that they properly fermented it. They just made their yogurt, and then afterwards we're like, do you know what, we're gonna add in these probiotics so that we can promote this and market this to people who are looking for probiotics. Now, if you actually look into this, and I've called Activia myself and looked into this, what they do is they add 10 billion bacteria. Sounds like a lot, right? You're like, score, I'm gonna get 10 billion little buggers in there to help fix my gut. I'll eat all the dairy I need to, all this yogurt, if this means I can poop regularly, right? Or if I don't have to have gas, if I'm not gonna be bloated, I will eat this yogurt. But again, guys, we have trillions of bacteria in our body, and comparatively speaking, 10 billion is really not a lot. But furthermore, if we actually look at the label and we understand what they're adding into their yogurt, they're adding a single strain of 10 billion bacteria into their probiotics after the fact. So not only are we not reaping the benefits of fermentation, which means it's going to be easier to digest, we don't get that benefit. We don't get the full spectrum, multiple strains that we would see present after proper fermentation. We're getting a single strain added, but also we're getting such a small amount of bacteria, it's really not a lot. It's not a lot to do a whole heck of a lot. Now, if we go a little bit further and we start to unpack the delivery system, right? The vessel, if you will, of these probiotics. So the vessel being the yogurt, right? So yogurt is the thing that we're consuming to try to get these probiotics. We have to also look at the fact that this is dairy based. And unfortunately, dairy can be extremely inflammatory. Now, when we already have digestive issues, whether you're on the spectrum of experiencing diarrhea, where you're going multiple times in the morning before you can even leave the house or get ready for the day, you're finding you have to set your alarm a little bit earlier in the morning to accommodate the multiple bowel movements, right? That nervous tummy. Or whether you're on the end of the spectrum of constipation and you're maybe only going once a day, you're not feeling empty. Sometimes you go multiple days with no poops or no bowel movements. You're feeling so full, you're so bloated, you're getting super gassy. I mean, these are all symptoms, guys, of damage, deficiencies, and infections. And this is often creating things like inflammation inside our gut. So when we take a food like dairy, which is very difficult to digest, and it becomes sticky and goopy inside our intestines, we're actually adding insult to injury. So there's a lot of different factors to take into account when we're looking at yogurt. But the thing is that when we look at the pros versus the cons, if we look at what you're going to benefit from, what you're going to get from it versus what it's going to take from you, the cost is actually too high when it comes to yogurt, and the benefit is also not that high. So if we're looking to really dive into a super nutrient-dense probiotic type food, there are lots of other options that are available to you that aren't going to provide you this inflammation, which you're trying to get rid of in the first place. So instead of the yogurt, what I would recommend instead is enjoying fermented foods like miso paste. And this is something that I love adding into my soups or broths. You can also enjoy something like sauerkraut or kimchi if you like a little bit of spice. There are other fermented foods like umbashi plums, even a good quality apple cider vinegar. These are all really healthy, nutrient-dense, probiotic-rich foods that are only going to provide you with the good stuff. So if you are one of those people that is desperately looking for what to eat and what not to eat, and you're struggling to figure it out, and you may have gotten caught on this probiotic yogurt train, I'll say, I want you to consider swapping and looking into some of these other foods, and know that you do not have to lose something, or it doesn't have to cost you your health to be able to get something beneficial into you, right? You don't have to create inflammation just to get a little bit of probiotics. There's ways that you can do this without hurting your gut further. So let me know in the comments if you've ever tried fermented foods before and how you like to eat them, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye guys.